What is up, guys? Fato82 coming at you with some delicious vanilla Rust gameplay. So crack a beer or twist one up if you have one and enjoy this footage. As always, this is a day in Rust. This is taking a look at vanilla Rust gameplay. We're spectating on little vignettes back to back here. We're starting on Rustopia US and we're ending on Rustopia EU. Getting us started right off the bat here, we have B Chills and his group. So we see Ray C dancing in here over some bodies. And if you've ever fought B Chills and his group, it's like fighting a group of necromancers. They know how to raise each other from the dead with a stunning efficiency, and they have bag placement down to a science. All the commotion attracted the neighbors next door as two naked send some arrows back the way of B Chills and his group, which in turn attracts their attention, and they take off towards the nakeds, hunting them down and killing them. You may have noticed, guys, that B Chills and his group were building up with wood foundations, twig foundations, and stairs to get up to the top of the base. It's a really effective method if you're not aware and wondering why they were doing that, to be able to raid the base effectively without having to blow through doors and walls. So if you gain access to the cupboard, you can get up there relatively quickly, and that's something that's good to take note of if you missed it. Next, we're moving over here to a vignette of a cave base that is being raided, and members are having to help each other to boost up because ladders no longer ignore privilege, so cave bases can be tricky. This one was really tricky because there are underwater loot rooms. It was a cave that filled with water, and that's something that provides some added security for the cave, but it's also much trickier for the raiders. Moving over here at this vignette, this is a trap house. This is not a place that you want to go. It looks pretty quaint, looks sort of inviting. It's on the side of a road, so it looks like it would be something that would want traffic. And it certainly does want traffic, but not in a good way. As the door opens, gunfire is exchanged here, and the house is built in a very specific way. It is meant to trap people in there and kill them and take their gear, and it's a place that's a farm for both player meat, bone fragments, and then any items and gear that players have. This is not typically a base players live out of, so they'll store gear in these upper areas and then move them back to their main base, transport them back to their main base. But it's really a cat and mouse game that's going on here, and the players who are outside are trying to strategically take out the trap house owners in a way that's going to allow them to leverage, the angles on the door and everything. They know that they're going to get trapped in there, so they're very cautiously trying not to move in there. The raider who's on the inside, not the raider, but the trap house owner who's on the inside of the window can actually manipulate that door through the window. If you want to figure out how to build a trap house, there's some awesome videos that show you how to do that, so it's not worth going into because there's already some great content from some other Rust content creators, so go ahead and check that out. Notice that the people who are trying to get the best of the trap house owners have decided to, in turn, play a trap on them to call their bluff. They've taken up on a rock out here, and they're hoping that the members will come out and they can engage them. That is the case. They were able to wait them out, and one member comes out here armed with a wooden spear, and he is naked otherwise. As he comes around the house here, he's quickly taken out by the raiders who are better geared and have more advantage out here in the wide open landscape. One down, one to go for the raiders, and the door is wide open, but they still give pause and don't want to go in because they know that the house is likely to win. And that would be the case most likely if they were to walk through that door. The other raider who was still alive, or trap house member rather, who was still alive, would light him up with a pipe shotty, close the door, take their gear. It's like a spider's web, guys. It's a tricky place, but hopefully you learn something from that vignette. And if you want to learn how to build it, again, go ahead and YouTube it. There's some great tutorials out there which will teach you just how to build that and also how to maybe defend against it as well. Now we're taking a look at a group that's moving out in force here, and they've already been spotted. As you can see, they're not taking a path that is the least traveled path. They're going straight down a road, so they don't seem to really care or are not giving much regard to their movements. On high pop Rust servers, the minute you roll out, chat will light up calling out movements of groups. So if you're going by places that are well trafficked like monuments, or you're going down roads, chances are you're going to be spotted, so just keep that in mind. I think this is a really beautiful shot coming up here in a moment. One player engaged them from the rock that we just took a look at, and as he tries to get away from them, he jumps in the water here. I thought he was going to make it. He was swimming through it with an arrow through his side. It looked like the clan members didn't know where he was, and I was really stoked to see a different outcome, but the automatic gunfire, lit up the environment and took him out. Now we're moving on over for a brief little vignette that's a little more laid back. A group is here as sun sets in the beautiful Rust landscape. They are cooking up dinner and they are fortifying their base. They're running their quarries, and they're doing this as a way to prepare for what's to come. They know raiders are out roaming the landscape. They themselves look like they're pretty well geared and maybe rolling out as well. But as night falls, you can see in the distance that there's a rad town area, and over in the rad town we have a player who is running around in what looks like a desolate rad town. Now this is something that I found very unusual, and I was really scratching my head saying, what the fuck is going on? Why is this the case? There's 300 people or more on the server, and why is there only one player in this area? Then it occurred to me that in the last wipe in Rust, they added in more rad towns. They've been about doubled, and that I think is what you're seeing here, is that there's much more freedom for players to roam these areas with less opposition. As always in Rust, don't let your guard down. Keep on your toes because you will encounter players, but this player had a really nice stroll through this area. Well, there were over 300 people. Well, there were more than 300 people on the server, so just keep that in mind. I think that really speaks to the effect of those increased rad town areas. Now we're taking a look at another group that's moving out here. Unlike the group that we saw previously, this is the exact opposite, and they're moving out under the cover of night wearing dark colors. They're wearing Beach Hills' hoodie to be specific, and the raiders before were wearing green, a brighter green color in the daylight. So you can really tell the difference there. It's really hard to film and see at night, but I really wanted to show this off because a barrage of gunfire happened here in a very quick time, and this is something that you don't typically see. Players at Rust don't have night vision. I don't believe can do the gamut exploits quite the way they could before, so you don't typically see large scale fighting. So the amount of gunfire here was something that really struck me, and I was going to just end with the players running through the darkness, but I said we have to stay here, we have to see what's going on. So I didn't know what this little base was. I still don't know exactly the meaning of it. My best guess is that it was a forward operating base or a raid base, and it was being attacked to be taken out. The raiders here, the attackers who are attacking the base, do take it over, placing down a door and securing it. Then they in turn defend it for a considerable amount of time. I spent probably about an hour at this location just watching it. Believe it or not, it was non-stop fighting. Bodies going down, bodies dropping left and right. It was very intense to see. Again, it's not as though it's a large group of raiders raiding a small base, so don't put that in the comments. It wasn't the case. There was some deeper meaning to this. It probably was a forward operating base, but it may have been something else that I'm really not sure of. So perhaps the comments will get filled from some people who were there, and we'll be able to hear more of the story that's going on here. But notice that the defenders here and the raiders are walling up the base. They're throwing down the high exterior stone walls. They're trying to really prepare and defend this area. So it's a hotly contested area, really a flashpoint on the server. You'll notice that a moment ago the raiders are trying to boost up into the base here, and they're going to give it another go in a moment. They're using a multiple man boost method, so they're not doing it with just one person on top of another. To get up over the walls, it's a bit of an acquired taste. You have to get the timing down just right, but you can boost up more than one member on top of each other, and it works if you have really more of a larger group to be able to have numbers to be able to do that. But again, just take note that the people who attacked the base and took it over are now defending it, and they're investing more supplies in building it up. So whatever, again, this area is something that is really a contentious point. I like seeing the perspective here of the raiders inside the base, or the raiders outside the base rather, and the defenders inside. It's something that gives you a perspective in terms of all that's going on sort of in that one moment in this area. So inside, the players can't tell that the raiders are bouncing up and down outside, trying to get on top of the base here. They're looking at the opposition they have on the rock there, trying to engage those targets as some raiders are boosting up here. One raider gets in here with a rocket launcher. It's not an incendiary rocket. I was hoping it was. I really wanted to see the effects that an incendiary rocket would have. Two raiders who boosted into the base are stuck down below now, and it looks as though the base has been walled off, making it more difficult for the raiders to gain access. So what they can do is boost one another up top, and they're going to be able to do that by choosing which member goes up. One has a rocket launcher, the other's armed with a pistol here. So not sure quite how that's playing out, but you can see that gunfire is going on both inside and outside the base. So this is a very chaotic area, and the amount of gunfire going on here is more than you sometimes see in a raid cam just in this period of time. I spectated on this area for approximately 1 hour, and it was non-stop fighting. and it was intense. So this was typically longer than we would stay at a location in A Day in Rust, but something really special was occurring here. It wasn't going to be enough footage or enough context to put into its own separate video, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to show it off. I think it has some value. Some things to also take note of here are that these raiders also end up getting flanked by a clan in green shirts who roll up here. I'm not sure if it was the same clan we saw rolling out earlier in the day. Maybe we can look at some names and see if they match up. I wasn't able to pick that up in the footage, but it got even more chaotic. Another group showed up here, flanked the raiders, but were also fighting the base defenders as well. So it further got complicated here, and I really can't wait to hear the backstory on this. I wish I knew more about it and could provide you guys more context. Alright guys, as we go ahead and wind this down, just wanted to say that I hope you're enjoying A Day in Rust. This is a series that is really meant to tell the stories of players and to capture it. As a Rust player, I always would have hoped that somebody would have been able to capture my experiences, so that's ultimately the goal here, and that's really the purpose of it. I did notice that the muzzle boost did seem to make an appearance in this segment quite a bit, so I think that was contributing to the barrage of gunfire that we're seeing and the intensity of it. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you're thinking about those new weapon attachments, and also what you're thinking about the rebalancing or changes to the balancing for the weapon attachments, how that's affected you this wipe cycle in Rust, and let's try to get a dialogue going on that, because I'm interested in hearing that. I haven't tested them out extensively, haven't had a lot of time to play this week, but was glad I was able to record these vignettes. We'll have Rust Cribs and some raids coming up soon, so make sure to stay tuned. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Fado82, peace.